FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's May 22nd, 2017. Well, we've already passed Trump's first 100 days. We're a little late there, so we'll suffice it with a 120-day review. And fortunately, we've got Matt Nye with us. Probably familiar with him, chairman of the Republican Liberty Caucus. He's also an innovative entrepreneur, and you are a seasoned political activist, Matt. And we had the pleasure of connecting last year at Freedom Fest in Vegas. Unfortunately, not going to be there this year, prior family commitment. But Matt, it's good to talk to you again.
Thanks, Kerry. Really appreciate you having me on again. I enjoyed meeting you last year.
Hey, you too. So Trump, 120 days. Forget about the first 100 days. What do you make of it?
From our perspective, to give just a little quick context on our organization, we're like the libertarian wing of the Republican Party, been around since 1991. So most of our members in the Republican primary, their first choice was Rand Paul, second choice probably Ted Cruz for most people. Trump was really not on our radar in terms of our principles and positions for our organization. So that's the context from which I'm giving my commentary here. But I will tell you, I think his first 120 days, mixed review, some wins, some misses, and just kind of from our organization's perspective, mixed bag, but the wins are significant. And then I think some of the misses are significant as well. So
what's his biggest win to date?
Oh, I think the biggest win would probably be the Neil Gorsuch nomination. I think that's kind of maybe kind of a gimme, but that's going to have lasting consequences. And I think if he gets another solid appointment like that on the Supreme Court, I think that'll probably be one of the defining characteristics of his presidency. Other big wins, I think, are just his moves to reduce the business regulatory environments. He put in place that rule. If you want to add any sort of regulation, you've got to repeal 2. So that's a very significant thing. I was thrilled to see the approval of the Keystone Pipeline. So again, another thing that all we heard about under the Obama administration was how that was being stymied. That's another significant win. So those types of things obviously were for free markets and competition. So anything that reduces the regulatory environment.
Yeah. Well, you can't not be in favor of that. I mean, look, once regulators stop issuing regulations, what do you need them for?
True. Well, I'm hardcore libertarian in the sense that, I believe in the rule of law, contracts. I don't think the business or the government has really any place, regulating business per se, because that just invites, price controls and all of these other things that are not consistent with free market ideology. So I'd love for there to be an amendment to the Constitution that said, Congress shall make no law that abridges the freedom of trade, production and trade. Get them out of it completely.
Yeah, well, that's hoping for a lot.
I'm kind of a radical there. So yeah.
Hey, I feel the same way, and there shouldn't be an income tax either, a corporate income tax.
Amen.
Because we're paying for it anyway. But in reality, let's face it, I don't know what the odds are of any of that occurring, but hey, so
you play the hand you're dealt, as they say.
Exactly. Are you dealt the hand you're played?
Not good. Right.
Yeah. So what do you think his biggest fail has been?
And honestly, this one's not completely on him. Obviously, the healthcare, or actually, what would be even bigger than that, I think, is the continuing resolution on spending. I think that was probably the worst. And again, that's more on Congress, but he could have put his foot down on that and basically told them, get your act together. I'm going to veto this. And he honestly, it was like he was just on autopilot. It was kind of like, you guys do whatever you want. I'll sign it. And, healthcare obviously was a disappointment. Again, I think that was more on the House, the House side. I think that was a Paul Ryan leadership issue where they were trying to, still do things the old way in the back room, no discussion, that was just embarrassing for the entire Republican Party. But again, I think he could have done more. The fact that he attacked the good guys in the sense of going after the Freedom Caucus for trying to, keep their promises to the voters, that was a little bit disturbing to me. I thought he was on the wrong side of that. He should have been going after the House, House leadership, not after the Freedom Caucus guys, because they're actually trying to, whether he realizes it or not, people thought that he was really going to repeal Obamacare, and that's not what's happening. So what we've got now is not looking good.
Yeah. So what are we going to wind up with the so-called Obamacare replacement? What's your guess?
If they don't, if the Senate doesn't pull some rabbit out of its hat, we're going to have something almost as bad as Obamacare that the Republicans are going to own and probably cost them the presidency in the next cycle.
You really think so, huh?
I think it's that bad, yes. Because I just, to me, they essentially gave up in this. Even you didn't hear anybody arguing about this, with the exception of maybe Rand Paul and maybe Thomas Massie or Justin Amash. If insurance covers pre-existing conditions, by definition, it's no longer insurance. It's an entitlement program. Correct. And so the fact that the entire Republican Party rolled over on that single point, you've conceded the entire argument now. You've created an entitlement program, and now it's just going to be who gets the loot. How are we going to divvy this up? Who's going to pay for whom? And that to me is where that was an epic fail. Rush Limbaugh was all over that when the Democrats were in charge, right? When that was his. He constantly talked about that, and then he didn't really talk about it so much when all this was happening with Republicans and the reform bill. I think he did mention it maybe once or twice, but nowhere near the level of scrutiny or angst that he was putting out there when Obamacare went through. So I think they've really shot themselves in the foot, and I think they're going to be very unpleasantly surprised that the American people, at least from what I can see on the grassroots side, that was your signature issue, even going back to the 2012 cycle. That was your signature issue, and that's why Romney didn't go anywhere in 2012, because the Republicans put up the one guy in the entire country that socialized medicine in his home state. Right. That was your main issue, and they put up the one guy in the entire country that socialized medicine in his state. So I think that's going to, like I say, unless the Senate does something dramatic, and of course everything you hear right now, it's only going to get worse. From a free market standpoint, they're saying this is the best we could get on the House side, and this is going to get watered down when it goes to the Senate. So it'll be, I think it's just bad news all the way around. So hate to sound so cynical, but
so what do you
been doing this for a while now.
What do you do about these pre-existing conditions here? I mean, is it the government's
you just got to get the government out of it. You get the government out of dictating things like that, and then you would have people that would fill those gaps. I mean, you're going to have higher risk pools that would form because and again, it depends on the illness, and there's all kinds of obviously there's some illnesses where you're literally going to be counting on charity, I'm sure, because there would be no insurance provider willing to take it. But it all comes down fundamentally to, are you obligated to pay for someone else's, you name it, healthcare? I mean, imagine if we did to the grocery store business what we do to insurance business. We'd be starving, if we had the same types of regulations and things in place for grocery stores. So it's just, anytime government gets involved with price controls or anything like that, it always results in shortages, and that's exactly what you've got now. So. Right.
Well, hey, it's like Will Rogers said, every time they pass a law, it's a joke. And every time they make a joke, it becomes a law. And that's what we got now, right?
That's a good quote. Yeah, that's a good quote.
So here we are. So, but hey, look at the alternative. Would you have preferred Her Highness Hillary?
Absolutely not. No, there's no question. I mean, that's what I say. Just from the Gorsuch nomination all by itself, I think that it's on the one hand, it's a low bar, and on the other, it's not, because again, that's going to have that type of appointment is going to have repercussions for decades, as will any others that he makes. So no question, he's clearly better than the alternative. It's just, I guess to me, what's so frustrating is that you really did have an opportunity, and Trump still has an opportunity, to really right the ship even more so. I guess that's the issue that I have with, Hillary is that's just such a low bar.
Yeah.
He's better than her. You did have, again, Rand Paul, but you had some really quality guys that somehow that's what I thought was fascinating is here you have these guys, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, who have repeatedly stood up to the establishment over the years and have proven time and time again they're willing to go against party leadership. And then somehow in the primary, they got lumped in as part of the establishment. So it's kind of like,
well, he got co-opted. He got co-opted.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I guess that's the other thing I think maybe, some of the mistakes that I see on Trump's part are, again, he's relying too heavily on the existing infrastructure that's there. You've heard the term deep state now is very common. And that, those are, my understanding is he still has he has lots and lots of positions that he has not filled with his own people. And so he's working with people that are loyal, probably still to the Obama administration, or at least to those ideals. And that's, those are bad things. You're here in Florida. You remember when Rick Scott here first got elected as governor, you can kind of see some parallels there where Rick Scott came in. He was the outsider, basically the Tea Party folks and the, anti-establishment folks are the ones that got him elected. He was loyal to the Tea Party people for maybe the first 6 months he was in office.
Yeah.
And then basically what happened is he hired the former Senate president's chief of staff. He basically absorbed all of the insiders that were working for other people up in Tallahassee. And the next thing you know, the Tea Party was out and we're going to suck up to the left and we're going to, go this, move to the middle, move to the left. And it just, I can see kind of the same things happening here to Trump. So hopefully he'll resist, but it's going to be interesting come the next cycle to see how all this shakes out.
So what about his foreign policy successes?
So that I think is a lot of good news there. Obviously, you were coming out of an administration that was probably worse than the Carter administration in regards to foreign policy. So, stark contrast here. You just saw Trump goes to Saudi Arabia, does not bow before the king. Is very, obviously very well respected. I think, that's probably the big win for the entire country is that now every other foreign country knows that the guy that is president of the United States actually loves the United States and knows the United States is a great place. And so that's why you can see, the way he's being received and treated by these other countries, Chinese president, all these other, and also that's probably, quite frankly, why the North Koreans are cranking up their, bellicose behavior because they're worried in his paranoid mind that we're going to go after him. But
well, and he's changed the whole theme on North Korea too, hasn't he? I mean, he's really
absolutely
changed.
No, that's what I say. These are all, these are all. I think in the sense that America is very much back as a superpower. Now, one thing I will disagree with, I can kind of see both sides, but I would disagree with the bombing they did in Syria. I thought that was kind of a weird 180 for him because he campaigned so heavily on America first, stay out of these other countries, no nation building. We're going to focus on making America great. And then basically, well, gosh, my intelligence guys came and showed me pictures of kids that were killed with chemical weapons, and that's unacceptable. So we're going to go bomb them. So again, the defense in his defense, he did say, hey, the former president drew this red line and now I'm going to enforce it. So I can see that part too, just from a credibility standpoint, making sure that these guys realize that we're actually going to follow through now on things like that. So,
yeah, well, it was a pretty benign attack when you look at it. And I don't think it really did much either way. Kind of showed he wasn't in the pocket of the Russians. So it kind of, was a meaningless kind of attack in the long run. We'll see. I think the Mideast conference that took place past weekend, far more significant potentially.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. No question. And I guess it's, the whole enemy of my enemy is my friend. It is interesting to see how people, those countries are kind of, adjusting their positions now on Iran, with the potential of a nuclear Iran. So, yeah. And it sounds like we're going to be there in very short order. So,
yes, sounds like it's possible, but one never knows. Maybe the Arab world will rise to the occasion for a change.
That would be nice.
It would be a shock, but, you never know. You never know. Anyway, Matt, people want to find out more about you, the work that you're doing and all. Where's the best place to find you?
You can visit us at rlc.org on our website. That's our URL. And then we also actually have our national convention is this weekend in Orlando. We're at the Rooter, basically all day Saturday. So if you go to rlc.org and hit the events tab, you'll see the information for the convention there. We've got a lot of great speakers. We've got Tom Woods from the Mises Institute. We've got Michael Bolden, the founder of the 10th Amendment Center. We've got Cliff Maloney from Young Americans for Liberty. Just a lot of great speakers and some good breakouts and panels and things. So we'll have activists from all over the country coming in for that.
Terrific. Hey, well, if you've got questions for Matt or myself, email me, kl@kerrylutz.com. Our Twitter feed's @KerryLutz, and our Facebook page, Financial Survival Network. Matt, we will talk to you again soon. Keep up the great work.
Thanks, Kerry. Really appreciate it.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.